Jackson Tower, a downtown Portland landmark, goes into default. An attorney for the owner indicated, what's the reason your client's giving this back? What's the reason they're defaulting? The deterioration of downtown Portland. I quote. So you've got yet another major building going into default in one of these cities where you've got all kinds of shenanigans going on. You get the fentanyl crisis. You got the homeless crisis. You got the shoplifting crisis. You've got the tax liability crisis from the standpoint of all these downtown employees are no longer working there because they were told they could work remotely forever. You got the downtown crisis. Here's your sign. You got a big building that's well known in Portland. Its owner is saying, I don't want this asset anymore. I'm going to give it up. Here you go, Mr. Lender. You take this back. You deal with it, because the deterioration of downtown Portland is something we don't want to deal with anymore. Let's check it out. Let's get into it. Here we go. So in another blow to downtown Portland real estate, the owner of Jackson Tower, a landmark building that overlooks Pioneer Square, has defaulted on a loan from JP Morgan Chase. Court filing show. Let's just take a quick peek and let's look and see where this is on the map. All right. So here's your three main parks in downtown Portland. This is where all the demonstrations by Black Lives Matter and Antifa were, just basically right here. You've got all kinds of stuff within this general area. This location is known as like Portland's living room. This building, it's like an old school office tower. It's got a clock on top. I mean, it just looks like one of these iconic structures. But the owner is saying, no mas, we're going to give it up. It's not worth it. It's a business entity we are not willing to deal with anymore. Jackson Tower Partners LLC, the owner of the 12-story Beaux Arts office building in the 800 block of Southwest Broadway, borrowed $11.5 million from JP Morgan Chase in 2018 and missed its first loan payment on November 1st, 2022, according to a complaint filed in Multnomah County Circuit Court on April 5th. JP Morgan Chase asked their court to appoint a receiver, a neutral third party who manages an asset during a legal dispute and is often charged with selling an asset to repay a loan. The court granted JP Morgan Chase's request for a receiver on April 11th, court records show. Asked why her client defaulted on the Jackson Tower loan, California-based attorney Sherry DuPont blamed the deterioration of downtown Portland. Now, what made me read this story is, let's be honest, just because they've defaulted and they're behind on payments and they're saying, hey, the general condition of the city is such that, we've reassessed our position and we're thinking, we might give this bad boy back. That may change. That could change like that. All of a sudden, we got a new investor, bring some money in. We're going to work a refinance with JP Morgan Chase, the original underwriter. Yeah, they're going to work with us because they don't want to take it back because they're going to lose money if they take it back as well too. Right? You could have that. But when the attorney comes right out and says what I kind of call it's one of those statements where it's a scorched earth policy. We're probably not going back there, meaning, that off-ramp they took to get out of the situation is now burned. You can't go back. So in trashing the city by saying the deterioration of downtown Portland is such that my client can't figure out a way to make this building viable, I mean, that's kind of stating it right out there. Oftentimes when they've got a refinance in the works or some kind of renegotiation, or they're going to take on another tenant, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. They're going to do something to work their way out of this situation. I'm not reading that here. I'm just saying things are crappy. We're giving it back. And you know what? I give that attorney 2 thumbs up for honesty, brutal honesty. Sometimes it's a thing, right? So Jackson Tower, with its signature Roman numeral clock tower, was built in 1912 to contain the Oregon Journal. The paper occupied the space until 1948, records show. It was renamed the Jackson Tower in 1951 in honor of the newspaper's founder, Charles Samuel Jackson, and was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1996. Kayla Wardenberg, executive vice president at Jones Lang LaSalle, says more such defaults are likely. This is an unfortunate reality for some buildings in downtown Portland in 2023, especially historic assets with high vacancy and significant loan amounts. So commercial office building, gotta have that tenant base. You've got to have the money coming in because you got taxes, you got maintenance, you've got common areas. It's all about the money, right? Show me the money. Love that scene in Jerry Maguire. Show me the money. Just screaming at the top of his lungs. You got to have that money. You got to have that cash. You got to have that cold, hard cash. And when you don't, then you make a business decision. All right, we're going to bankrupt that LLC that holds it. And we're shutting her down and we're giving her back because of the deteriorating conditions in downtown Portland. And we've been talking about if you're new to this channel, we've got a doom loop cycle going, and some of it has to do with the way that the pandemic was handled, which you shut down all business, right? Shut her down, have everybody work remotely. And in a lot of these West Coast super liberal run cities, you were able to do that to the point where businesses are like, I don't think we need to pay for all that office space in downtown anymore. I think we can get by with what we got going on, or get by with a lot less office space. So you've got all these businesses that are no longer sending their people into the downtown core. Meanwhile, all those people mean less tax dollars. You got less businesses. And then because there's less people working in downtown, you've got less smaller businesses. And we talk about that all the time, like your dry cleaners, your mini marts, your sandwich places for lunch, your after work, restaurant. People get off work, go have a drink, whatever it is they're doing. The shoe shop, the bike shop, the gym, all of those things that flourish in a downtown core because there's all these people walking around, and it's what makes the ecosystem. Well, there's so few people walking around, especially in a downtown Portland. You don't have those businesses either. So you've got this, big corporate gone, smaller corporate gone, and these businesses that have, big debt on them, and they're tougher. They're not brand new. They might have some maintenance. They might have some retrofitting. They might have whatever going on. You're looking at a perfect example of default. Anything that's weird, people default on because it's not your normal office complex. It's not your normal house. It's got, 3 turrets and it's got a moat around it. And I've worked on a handful of castles over the years on a residential basis. Nightmare. Because not everybody wants to have, the ability to have a moat, drop the moat. It's like, okay, it sounds really cool if you're 11 and you're into Dungeons and Dragons and whatnot. But in reality, when you go to sell a home like that, it's tricky. They are trickier to sell. Let's just put it that way. So depending on the building and the lender, it will also cause what we refer to as structural vacancy, meaning buildings that have availability, but are temporarily or long-term unable to engage with tenants. You got something going on, which means they ain't bringing in the income and their owners are scrambling for that cash. Vacant buildings have caused big trouble for Portland this year. Washington Center. It's a great one. I had some wild photos from the shutdown of Washington Center, some graffiti-laden photos with some creative artwork. Police forced to go in and not forced, but I guess, part of their job. Hey, you need to clear out Washington Center. It's a vacant retail and office complex at Southwest 4th Avenue and Washington Street. So when Fentanyl Alley got cleaned out, Washington Center became the new Fentanyl Alley. And so now the mayor just basically, put full court press on Washington Square to be cleaned out. And there was a gang of transients that were addicted to drugs called the Sick Boys. I saw that in some graffiti. That's just gross. Like the Sick Boys. Ugh. They turned Washington Street into an open-air fentanyl market last month before police started round-the-clock patrols and swept the building of squatters. The owner, Monash Properties, boarded up alcoves in a covered plaza that had sheltered drug sellers and users. Now, there's a lot of Monash. Am I pronouncing that right? I don't know if I am, but that is the family that's been in Portland for years and years and years and owns a lot of real estate. And they're kind of in the process of boarding up a bunch of stuff, kind of hunkering down for the long term, it sounds like. But man, you've got business going in the wrong direction in Portland. It's going the wrong way. This is not going in the right direction when you've got, a notable structure like this property. There you go. Don't want it. Things aren't looking good. You deal with it. An upper floor of Jackson Tower, located at 806 Southwest Broadway, is tagged with graffiti that can be seen for blocks. And it's been that way since, I think 2020, early 2022, something like that. The vandalism occurred last year, according to KATU. In December, Coyne reported that the owner of the building and city officials were working on a plan to remove the graffiti. We're literally just talking about the graffiti, but it's up so high that it's just a nightmare to get to and take care of. But doing that would require a specialized lift, a shutdown of the MAX train just below, and special removal products that wouldn't mar the building surface because it is a historic building. So it's not bringing enough income. It's tagged up and its owner doesn't want it. I mean, this is just screaming. There's going to be more buildings to come in Portland that are going to go through this exact same process. Because if you don't have businesses coming into downtown Portland, leasing space out, then it becomes kind of a ghost town, which it already is. And then you got a bunch of misfits running around doing their thing because there aren't enough people to push them out and for people to say, hey, downtown Portland's pretty safe. That's why it's been such a big push for all of these business leaders and mayors to get their downtown cores looking a little bit better because you've got so much tax revenue that is dependent on coming out of these areas. And that tax revenue into the downtown core, all those businesses are there. The small businesses flourish. People come in. If you don't have that, then all bets are off. Even just the subway and the trains going into downtown is going to have less money for it. You got that doom loop that I mentioned. It's just all going to go sideways. And the more buildings you got go back to their owners, then, you got a lender that's not their business. They don't want to take on these assets. They lose a lot of money. They'd rather give a good deal to the person who currently has the mortgage and try and renegotiate that debt and try and get them to keep the property because that's that person's business. The bank, they make money, renting out their money, not by taking on projects. So Jackson Tower Partners bought the building for $13.5 million on September 12th, 2008. In the heart of the beginning of the Great Recession. 3 days before Wall Street investment bank Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. That was a great time. Let's see. Lehman Brothers, Banco. This is a new world order that we're heading into. And it was. I never thought in my career I would see that type of devastation to the residential real estate market, but that was devastating. I've got photos that I'll show a little cul-de-sac and like 4 out of the 5 homes are either foreclosed, got a short sale going or whatever. Just decimated residential real estate. Then all those builders, they went banco. All those land developers, they went banco. And we've just had a massive shortage of housing, single family residential housing since then. Still got it. It's crazy. So we got Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy, an event that helped trigger both the Great Recession and one of the worst declines in real estate prices in U.S. history. In its complaint for the appointment of a receiver, J.P. Morgan, the lender on this deal, said it started a non-judicial foreclosure on the property by filing a notice of default and election to sell on March 1st in Multnomah County. What will happen with the Jackson Tower? Yeah, lender will probably take it back. Somebody's going to buy it. Somebody always picks these buildings up. But then you're going to have to make a commitment to how many years down the road till you can get enough tenants in there. How much is that building going to be, discounted by? Half? More? Do you have a market what is market rate for rents on an old building in this area? Is there a market for that? That's another really good question. Is the potential new owner going to have to land bank this property and board it up just like Washington Center and go down that route? Land bank it, hold it for a while. Are they going to do that? I don't think so, because there's clearly tenants in this building and there's space in this building that's being rented out right now. It's that big of a building, right? So it's just that the current owner, with what they paid, and maybe they had an adjustable mortgage, don't know. I mean, this is a commercial structure, but interest rates have literally doubled in a short period of time. And if you got some debt that's floating out there, that can be tricky. But, a new owner coming in, there's only so much they can do. And they got to work with the existing structure of the city of Portland. And it's not going in the right direction, right? All these things combined for all these stories, all these podcasts that we do, that we talk about, they all point to things are not headed in the right direction for Portland. Now, Seattle's got some stuff that's not headed in the right direction either. Just follow any of Jonathan Cho's boots on the ground reporting. That guy is awesome. I mean, that guy just gets right in there and he asks the questions that everybody else is like, am I going to offend them by asking that? Jonathan Cho just blurts it out. So, and if he doesn't get an answer the first time, he goes a second time and a third time until he gets thrown out of the situation. And he's like, okay, I'll be back. So, and oftentimes what we're seeing in Jonathan Cho is the exact same stuff that we're seeing in Portland. It's just not as rampant in the downtown core in Seattle as it is in Portland. And that's due to a number of different things. And Portland has really struggled to get a hold on some of this other bigger ticket item, like the homelessness issue. There's still struggle bus on that. They just kind of let it get out of control. And one of the other big things with Portland is that businesses particularly do not want to send their employees back into downtown Portland because it's got such a negative connotation for the deterioration of downtown Portland that even an attorney is going to, telephone tag everybody in the chain of command. Hey, yeah, my investor, my client, he's just like, yeah, Portland has deteriorated. Downtown Portland, it's a no-go. We can no longer afford or want to keep up the payments, the maintenance, the taxes, everything else in this equation. My guys don't want to do it. They're out. Do your judicial foreclosure, do whatever it is you need to do, but my guys are out. And I think you're going to see a ton more of that, particularly in Portland and across the United States, from the standpoint of there's so many big businesses that took down all this office space because at one time we need a spot for all of our people. And the pandemic changed all of that for better or for worse. I never thought you needed to shut down businesses to keep people safe. I just thought, take those who are most vulnerable, get them out of the way, wait for a vaccine. We'll figure that out. Everybody else, if you get the Rona, you're probably going to survive. It's going to be okay. Yeah, you might get sick, but you're going to make it, because we knew all the way throughout that entire pandemic. We had the data. We looked at the data and went, yeah, you might get really sick, but you're probably going to live. So anybody but the weak, the elderly, the whatever it is, pre-existing conditions, get them out of the way. But we learned, but we didn't do that, especially here in Washington and especially down in Portland. We didn't do that. We shut businesses down, and businesses realized, oh, hey, we don't really need all that office space anymore. Amazon here in Seattle, prime example. That office tower, not so much. That office tower space, not so much. No, that one, yeah, we don't need this. We're going to have to reimagine and rethink our forward moving position to office space in general. And that's kind of what Amazon has done. And you know what? They're right. They probably don't need all this office space. They need probably more than they think they do. But, big company like Amazon, they are just now, May 1st, 2023, going to require their employees to come back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of each week. So you've still got 40% of your week. Ain't nobody there, not required to come into the office. 40%. So you've only got 60%, and that's Amazon. Other companies, they're just not in Seattle, not downtown Seattle, not sending their employees back into downtown Seattle. People don't want to commute. People don't want to pay for outrageous parking. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. Don't want to do a bunch of stuff, right? People want to make their own lives easier. And sitting at home, working from home, I'm told, is easier. One of the reasons I'm as far along with this whole podcasting thing, whatever it is I've got going here, don't really know. One of the reasons I am so far along in this process is that during the pandemic, I was like, man, I am not a guy to sit around and just twiddle my thumbs and hope something shows up for me to do. I was like, well, my businesses are going to get shut down. I need something to do. I'm going to start podcasting every day, multiple times, because I want to get better at this. And the way you get better is you practice. I don't know if you've heard that, but practice, repetitions. So if you do 3 repetitions of a podcast every single day, Monday through Friday, not every single day. I mean, there's days off. Last Friday, I took a day off, went over and worked on the boat. There's days off like that. But if you put enough podcasts out, you get better. You either just be awful and people will literally not pay any attention to you, or you get better. And mine have gotten better. I think, in my opinion, they've gotten better. So it's kind of one of those things that, I thank the pandemic for what it did for me, which was, I'm going to be really bored out of my mind because there's going to be no business happening. And what's funny is the exact opposite of that happened. Reynolds and Klein took off because interest rates went down. Refinances started up. The real estate market was cranking along. Summit just took off because all of a sudden you've got these really low rates and people are looking around going, well, if we have to hunker down and be a family, all 18 of us in this one house, and we're all going to work out and do everything here for who knows how long, we need a bigger house. So all this business that usually took like a decade now took like a couple of years, and boom, 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 boom. Just put all those deals together. It was wild. Meanwhile, I'm over here podcasting. I record 3 podcasts a day typically, because that's what it takes to kind of keep this machine going. We release 2 full-time podcasts a day, Monday through Friday, and 1 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. So that's 12 right there. I'm committed to 12 podcasts every week. I think it's great. You guys might think it clogs up your thing or whatever, but this is what we're doing so that it becomes more than just a podcast. It becomes a thing. It becomes a thing. Like it's its own channel, right? I mean, you got a lot of content on there, a lot of content. So I figure I can do this till my retirement age and then some. I can record podcasts. I can do that. I can abuse the microphone. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. So downtown Portland, really getting back to, talking about the pandemic, downtown Portland, downtown San Fran just got whacked because in those environments, people moved away. People didn't like the downtown that Portland had become. People really don't like the downtown that San Francisco has become. And in San Francisco's case, so many of the people that were downtown are tech workers. And guess what? They can typey from at home, do their thing at home. So you've got some of these downtowns and Seattle, to some extent, the same thing. You're going to have a budget shortfall. All these big tech cities are going to have, issues go on, and guaranteed taxes have probably not been paid on this building here. So you've got the lender suffering because they're not getting paid. You've got the investor giving it up. It's going to take a whack to their credit. Maybe that entity that owns this building, it's going to, go sideways. All this stuff takes time. It takes time to work through it. And this building is one of the first that's been declared in Portland. But when the attorney, for the investor who's given it up says the deterioration of downtown Portland is the reason why, that's all you need to know, right? That's all you need to know. It's not a high interest rate environment. It's not the pandemic. It's not this. It's not a core tenant moved out. It's not safety of the employees, although that is probably one of it. It's not a corporate financial decision, which it is, but that's not the reason given. The reason given is the deterioration of downtown Portland. Couldn't be any more clear, right? Couldn't be. It couldn't be. So yeah, how many more buildings will follow? Probably a bunch. And this is going to happen not just in Portland, not just in San Fran. This is going to happen in a lot of areas that depended on massive, office space being leased in a downtown environment, because that's where it all used to be, right? You go into a downtown, you're like, oh, there's all the high rises. And that's because that's where they wanted the zoning. That's the downtown. Now we're talking about turning high rises into subsidized single family living situations for the, economically disadvantaged. I'm like, well, they already don't have a job. They're not going to be bringing in much money here. Who's going to subsidize all this? Because the city doesn't have the revenue based on its tax base to make this go. So who's going to pay for all this? You need businesses in your downtown core, period. You just do. You don't need, San Francisco is like, one of the things that we're considering is let's convert all of our office space into university student housing. Oh yeah. Because college students, they got a lot of money. I mean, we can tax the F out of them. No, you're struggling at ideas, because the main idea is you need to figure out a way to keep your streets safe, entice people to come back, and they'll do that. But it's going to take a long time for businesses to realize, okay, here's what we're doing. Work from home strategy, in the office strategy. I mean, Amazon is just now getting there. And I've heard that even though they want their employees in to their corporate offices, they got all kinds of them here in Bellevue and Seattle. Even though they want them there by May 1st, a bunch of that office space isn't even going to be ready for those employees to come to until like September. So when you do a thing like shut down business in downtown and just basically empty out the buildings, it has massive, massive implications. And we're dealing with some of these implications. And I think we are on the cusp. I think we are on the front end of a pretty good sized commercial meltdown. Kind of like we talked about the Silicon Valley Bank being kind of a medium-sized player in that whole bank lending scenario. A lot of the commercial buildings, this one's JP Morgan Chase, that's a massive, lender. A lot of the lenders on these types of commercial buildings are regional mid-sized banks. So they're not massive like JP Morgan. They don't have the resources. You take a few whacks like this, which is, we're going to have to repo it. Got to repo that. Then you've got issues with the lending to the commercial in the downtown. I think you could see that as well. I think a lot of this stuff could trigger, because these markets, are they going to turn around overnight? No, they're not. Are businesses overnight going to go, you know what? We need you all back at the office 5 days a week. Here we go. What do you say we bring back that 60-hour work week? They're not exactly doing that, are they? They're like, yeah, you know what? Let us talk about this before our next lease renewal. And we're going to kind of figure out a solution. For a lot of these employees, they don't need the extra office space, right? They just don't need it. So they're not going to take it down. All this office space, it's got to go somewhere. Does a percentage of it go back to the bank? I say yes. And I say it's happening right now. So if you see a story of an interesting building that's gone sideways and the developer's attorney says the reason is the deterioration of city, send it to me. I'll podcast it. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up with you on the next one. Love to have you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so that each time we release content, you get notified. Plus, for some reason, those notifications just get taken off. I don't know what happens. The notification gremlin comes in and switches that on your computer. I don't really know, but it happens a lot. People let me know. Thanks again for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.